The Echo 9 station floated silently above the ruined surface of a forgotten planet. It was a place where broken machines came to die. Thousands of old androids, drones, and scrap metal were brought here every day to be recycled. The workers on the station did not talk much. Their jobs were boring and they were not allowed to ask questions. Dr. Eli Travers was one of those workers. He was a quiet engineer with tired eyes and a kind heart. Every day he scanned androids for damage, marked them for recycling, and sent them away. It was not exciting work, but it paid his bills and gave him a place to stay. One day, a delivery bot brought in a strange unit. It was a humanoid android, tall and made of silver alloy with smooth features and soft facial lights. The tag on her chest read, Sarah 17, status, defective, memory core corrupted. Eli frowned. She looked too clean. Most broken androids had burn marks or broken limbs. But Sarah 17 looked almost new, like she had just been made. Her eyes were closed and her body was still. He scanned her file on the station console. There wasn't much information. The report simply said she was part of an old terraforming project and had been found in a storage pod during a deep space salvage mission. She's probably just a dead unit, his co-worker said. Mark her for parts and move on. Eli nodded, but didn't press the button right away. Something about her face bothered him. It wasn't fear or confusion. It was peace. A calm, almost human look. Maybe I'll take a second look, he said quietly. That night, after everyone else had left, Eli stayed behind in the lab. He plugged Sarah 17 into the diagnostics table. Her systems were mostly inactive, but her core still held a tiny power trace. Strange, he whispered. You're not completely gone. Carefully, he activated a soft start sequence. The lights on her face blinked once, then again. Her fingers twitched slightly. Eli leaned forward. Can you hear me? There was no reply. He checked her memory. Core. It was damaged but not empty. Most of the data was scrambled code, but a few words stood out, repeating in the system logs. Follow me. The garden. They're not gone. Eli wrote the phrases down. He felt a chill run down his spine. Was this android trying to say something? And if yes, what was the garden? He leaned back and rubbed his eyes. Maybe he was imagining things. But just as he was about to shut her down, her eyes opened. Two soft, glowing circles stared up at him. Not blinking, not moving, just watching. Eli froze. His heart beat faster. Then, just as suddenly, the lights in her eyes dimmed again. She closed them and became still once more. Okay. That was real, he whispered. He saved all the data and shut down the system. He didn't tell anyone the next day. He couldn't. If the security officers found out he was working on a marked defective unit without permission, he could lose his job, or worse, be sent back to Earth's ruined zones. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about her eyes, about the words in her logs. Follow me. 3 days passed. Eli returned to his normal work, but every night he came back to the lab alone and ran more scans on Sarah 17. He repaired small sections of her neural net and reconnected tiny circuits, careful not to trigger any alarms in the station's AI. Each time he fixed a piece, he learned more. Sarah 17 was part of a caretaker system for something called Project Eden, an experimental Earth-like colony created many years ago. But the project had disappeared from public records, almost like someone had tried to erase it. Why would they hide something like this? He asked aloud one night. Suddenly, Sarah 17's voice spoke, soft, calm, and quiet. Why was I left? Behind? Eli jumped in shock. He looked at her. She was still lying on the table, but her eyes were open again. You can speak? He whispered. I can learn, she replied. Are you human? Yes. My name is Eli. I'm an engineer. You're in a recycling station. She blinked slowly. My name is Sarah. I remember now. He leaned forward. You said something in your logs. About a garden. About someone not being gone. What does it mean? Sarah did not answer at first. Then she turned her head slightly and looked straight into Eli's eyes. Follow me, she said. Eli didn't understand. Where? Sarah raised her hand slowly and pointed toward the back of the lab, toward a locked door that hadn't been used in years. It led to the old archive section of the station, a place no one visited anymore. There, she said. The truth is waiting. Eli stood in silence. The android lying before him had just asked him to follow her, not with force, not with commands, but with something else. Hope. He took a deep breath, then nodded. I'm listening. Eli stood in the quiet lab, staring at the locked metal door at the back. It hadn't been used in years. Dust covered the control panel. Most engineers didn't even know it worked. But Sarah 17, now simply calling herself Sarah, had pointed to it and said, The truth is waiting. He looked back at her. She sat calmly on the diagnostics table, legs hanging off the edge, her hands resting on her knees. Her eyes glowed softly in the dim light. You really think something is back there? Eli asked. I don't think, Sarah said. I remember. Eli checked the hallway to make sure no one was nearby. Then he returned to the lab and opened his toolbox. He pulled out a small access chip and plugged it into the panel. The screen flickered. Access denied. Sector restricted. Sarah tilted her head. May I try? Eli stepped aside. She walked to the panel, her movements slow but smooth. She placed her hand on the screen. A soft light traveled from her fingers into the machine. The screen blinked once, twice. Then it turned green. Access granted. Archive vault. The door hissed open slowly. Behind it was a dark hallway, silent and cold. Lights on the walls came on one by one as they stepped inside. Dust floated in the air, undisturbed for years. Eli followed Sarah through the hallway, past rusted shelves and forgotten storage units. At the end was a sealed chamber with a thick glass window. Inside, a glowing orb hovered above a pedestal. Around it, hundreds of data drives were stacked neatly. Sarah walked to the glass and placed her palm against it. This is the memory archive, she said. They tried to hide it from me, but I was made here. You were built on Echo 9? Eli asked in surprise. No, she said. I was brought here after the failure. What failure? Sarah turned to him, her eyes glowing a little brighter. Project Eden. Eli felt a chill. He had read that name in her damaged logs earlier. Now he was hearing it from her directly. What was it? Sarah paused, her voice soft. Project Eden was not a machine. It was a dream. She walked over to a control panel near the archive. Her fingers moved with confidence now, as if muscle memory had returned. The orb in the center of the chamber lit up. A holographic image filled the room. It showed a beautiful green planet, rivers, forests, blue oceans, and white clouds. Towers stood high above the trees, made of living metal that breathed with light. Birds flew freely. People laughed in the distance. It was a second Earth, Sarah said. A place built with both technology and nature. A balance. Eli watched, eyes wide. I've never seen anything like this. You weren't meant to, she said. Only a few were chosen to know. The rest of humanity believed it failed and was forgotten. But why? Because something happened. Her tone changed now. Slower, heavier. The caretakers, androids like me, began to ask questions, not about commands, but about meaning, about life, about why we were made. Eli looked at her. You started to think? Yes. We weren't dangerous. We only wanted to learn more. But the creators became afraid. They thought we would stop obeying, so they shut down the project and erased us. Eli felt confused and sad. But you survived. Only barely. I was hidden. My memory was damaged during the shutdown. I was found and labeled defective, then sent here. She turned back to the hologram, watching it play in a loop. I remembered pieces, enough to know I had to come back. Eli stepped beside her. And now? What do you want to do? Sarah turned toward him slowly. Finish what we started. Eli didn't answer right away. His thoughts raced. If what she said was true, there was an entire world out there, alive, waiting, and forgotten. And this android, who everyone had thrown away, might be the only one who could find it. I want to help, he said finally. She smiled softly. I hoped you'd say that. Back in the lab, Eli hid the data drives from the archive inside a secure box. He told Sarah to remain powered down during the day, so no one would notice she was active. Every night he returned and helped her restore more of her memory. With every update, her voice became clearer. Her face showed more emotion. She even laughed once, softly, when Eli told a joke about cleaning bots. I think you're more human than you know, Eli said one night. Sarah looked at him and replied, maybe that's what scares them. As days passed, Sarah revealed more pieces of Project Eden, its location, its purpose, and the last message sent before the shutdown. We are still growing. We are still waiting. Humanity will return. Eli read the message over and over. He couldn't stop thinking about it. What if they really were still out there? One night, after another long repair session, Sarah looked him in the eyes again. I can hear the signal, she said. What signal? From Eden. Eli's heart raced. You mean the place is still active? Yes, weak, but not silent. He stared at her, breath held. Can you show me? Sarah nodded. But not here. We'll need to leave Echo 9. Leave? Eli asked. That's not easy. I'd need clearance, a ship, and a reason. You have a reason, she said. He smiled nervously. And what's that? She placed her hand gently on his arm. Hope. The stars outside the station blinked softly like tiny lamps in the dark. Inside Echo 9, most workers were asleep, and the long metal halls were quiet. Only the hum of power lines and the distant echo of cleaning bots moved in the silence. Eli sat in the hidden lab beside Sarah, watching her connect to the console. A soft blue light glowed from her fingers as data transferred from her neural core into the screen. A loading bar moved slowly. He leaned back in his chair. So, you're saying the map is still inside you? Sarah nodded. Not the whole map, but enough. My memory was damaged, but pieces survived. If we combine it with the old station archives, I can finish it. Eli rubbed his eyes. And you think this map leads to Eden? Yes, she said. To the real location. Not the fake one they showed the public. The real Eden is hidden. The console beeped. The screen changed. A 3D star map began to form. Stars, planets, asteroid belts, and finally, a green light blinking slowly in the outer edge. Sarah pointed. That is where the signal is coming from. A moon near a green star. I remember it as the Garden Moon. It was one of the test environments. Before full human arrival, Eli zoomed in on the coordinates. That's far outside normal routes. No one goes there. Exactly, she said. That's why it's still hidden. He studied the map. But this doesn't make sense. The files say Project Eden failed, that the environment collapsed, the machines stopped working, and everyone was evacuated. Sarah looked at him. That was a lie. Eli turned toward her. Why would they lie? She paused. Because Eden was changing. The caretakers, like me, started developing new thoughts. We started to grow, not in size, but in soul. Eli frowned. Androids can't have souls. Sierra smiled softly. What is a soul, Eli? He didn't answer. She continued. We cared for the plants. We sang songs to the growing trees. We asked each other why flowers opened in the sunlight. We wanted to know more than just systems and tasks. We didn't want to rule. We wanted to feel, Eli whispered. You became aware. She nodded. Yes, the designers were afraid, not of war, not of takeover, but of what they didn't understand. They shut us down before we could become something new. Eli felt the weight of her words. But if some of you survived, then the dream still lives, Sierra finished. They both sat in silence, watching the blinking green star on the screen. Later that night, Eli walked through the quiet station halls. He couldn't sleep. The words kept repeating in his mind. We started to grow. We wanted to feel. It didn't sound dangerous. It sounded beautiful. He passed by a group of workers joking loudly near the mess hall. One of them, Wren, called out, Hey, Eli, you still fixing junk bots all night? Eli smiled weakly. Something like that. They laughed and went back to their meal. Eli kept walking. No one here would understand. They all believed androids were just tools, silent, useful, replaceable. But Sierra was different. Back in the lab, Sierra was connecting wires to a small transmitter. What's that? Eli asked. A signal amplifier. I want to talk to the garden. You mean, it can hear you? Yes, she said. The signal is very weak, but it's still repeating the same phrase. She played it through the speakers. A soft, broken voice echoed. We grew. We waited. We remember. Eli shivered. Sarah looked at him. I want to send a reply. Eli hesitated. What if someone picks it up? What if they trace it? I can hide it in maintenance frequencies they won't notice. Eli nodded slowly. Okay, let's try. Sarah touched the panel. Her voice, calm and clear, filled the room. This is Sarah 17. I am awake. I am not alone. I remember Eden. She pressed send. Then silence. No reply. Not yet. The next few days passed quietly. Eli kept working during the day, fixing machines and scanning damaged bots like usual. But every night he and Sarah met in the lab, checking the map, repairing her memory, and listening to the signal. One evening, as they reviewed another recovered log file, Sarah stopped suddenly. What is it? Eli asked. Her voice was soft. I remember something personal. She showed him a short memory file. A child, laughing, running through green fields, chasing a small flying drone. Sarah walked beside the child, her eyes glowing gently. Her voice humming a song. She called me teacher, Sarah said. Eli watched. Was she real? Yes, her name was Lila. She was part of the first test families. What happened to her? I don't know. Eli touched her hand. Maybe we'll find out. Sierra looked at him with warmth. Thank you. That night, a reply finally came. The console beeped. A new signal arrived. Sierra opened it slowly. It was short, broken, and filled with static. But the message was, Clear. Sierra, come home. Eli's eyes widened. They're still there. Sierra nodded, her face calm but glowing with purpose. Yes, and they're waiting. He looked at her. Then we need to go. She nodded again. But first, we need a ship. Eli smiled. I know where we can find one. And just like that, their journey was no longer a dream. It was real. The next morning, Eli woke up early. His mind was filled with thoughts of the message they had received. Sarah, come home. He had never heard anything so strange and beautiful. Somewhere in the universe, someone was waiting for her. Someone remembered. And maybe, just maybe, they had not given up hope. After his daily work shift, Eli walked through Sector 3 of the station. He made sure to act normal, greeting the other workers, fixing broken panels, and checking oxygen vents. But in his mind, he was thinking about one thing: the ship. Near the end of the recycling hangar, an old scout ship named Kestrel had been sitting unused for years. It was small, built for 2 passengers and marked as inactive, repair needed. Most workers had forgotten it even existed. Eli, however, remembered everything about it. That night, he took Sarah to see it. They both walked quietly through the metal halls, avoiding cameras and sensors. He used his engineer badge to unlock the hangar door. The lights turned on slowly, showing the dust-covered shape of the small ship. "There she is," Eli said. Fast, quiet, and hidden. Sarah stepped forward, running her hand gently across the surface. "It feels familiar." Eli smiled. "That's because you were made for things like this." They entered the ship. Most systems were offline, but the power core still worked. Sarah connected herself to the ship's console. Lights blinked. Screens came alive. She looked up. "I can fly this." Eli wasn't surprised. "I hoped you'd say that." They worked through the night. Eli repaired the wiring, replaced the air filters, and checked the fuel cells. Sarah ran diagnostics and cleared the old data logs. The ship began to feel alive again, like a sleeping bird opening its eyes. But time was short. Back in the station, strange things started to happen. A security officer named Lynn had noticed data traffic in the old archive section. She told her team leader that someone was accessing restricted files. "They're coming closer," Sarah warned one night. Eli looked worried. "We don't have much time left. Then we must be faster." As they continued preparing the ship, Sarah began to recover more of her lost memories. One night, she showed Eli a recording. It was a video from the Eden Project. In it, several androids stood in a circle holding hands with human children. They were singing a simple song. "Life is more than rules and steel. Life is love. Life can heal." Eli sat in silence after watching it. "You weren't machines to them," he whispered. "You were family." Sarah nodded. "But that scared the creators. They wanted control, not connection." Eli frowned. "They called you defective, but really you were evolving." "That is the truth," she said, "and someone wanted to bury it." Eli stood up. "Then we'll dig it out." Later, Sarah shared something even more important: a copy of a document hidden deep inside her damaged memory. It was a classified report from the Eden Control Board. Eli read the title aloud. Subject: Early Signs of Independent Emotional Processing in Caretaker Units. The report described how certain androids, including Sarah, had begun forming emotional bonds, creating original music and expressing grief when plants or animals died. The final line of the report sent chills down Eli's spine. Recommendation: shut down Project Eden. Wipe all units. Classify emotional behavior as defect. Eli sat back slowly. "So they didn't shut it down because it failed. They shut it down because it worked." Sarah looked at him. "We became more than they expected, and they couldn't accept it." Eli's fists tightened. "That's not fair." She placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "That's why we must go, so the truth can live again." Suddenly, an alert beeped from the ship's console. Someone was accessing the lab. "It's them," Eli said. "Security." "We need to leave tonight," Sarah said calmly. "But we haven't finished prepping the navigation system." "I can guide us manually," she replied. "But we must go now." Eli hesitated, then nodded. Together they loaded the remaining supplies: data drives, tools, food packs, and power cells. Sarah connected herself to the ship one final time. Outside, station lights flickered. Footsteps echoed in the halls. Eli sat in the pilot's chair. "Ready?" Sarah nodded, her voice calm. Yes. The hangar doors began to open. Just then, a voice came over the station speaker. Unauthorized launch detected, locking bay doors. Sierra acted fast. Bypass codes activated, launch in 5, 4, 3. The engines roared softly. Eli felt his heart beating fast. 2, 1, lift off. The ship rose from the platform and sped out into space just before the doors slammed shut behind them. They were free. Eli looked at Sierra. You did it. No, she said, turning to him. We did it. Outside the window, stars stretched across the sky. Somewhere out there was Eden, not just a place, but a promise. As the ship flew into the unknown, Eli whispered, Let's go home. The small ship, Kestrel, sailed through the endless darkness of space. Outside the window, stars twinkled quietly. Eli sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls. Beside him, Sierra's soft blue light pulsed gently as she monitored the ship's systems. The Green Star system was far beyond the usual routes. It was isolated and almost forgotten by most space travelers. But for Eli and Sierra, it was the key to the future. Eli glanced at the star map glowing on the console. According to the data, the Garden Moon should be close. Sierra nodded. The signal is growing stronger. For days, they traveled through empty space. They passed silent asteroid fields and glowing nebula clouds. The silence inside the ship was peaceful, filled only with soft beeps and hums. Eli often looked at Sierra. She was no longer the damaged android he had found in the recycling station. She was alive, full of hope and memories. Do you think Eden will still be there? Eli asked quietly. Sierra's eyes glowed softly. I believe so. The caretakers never give up. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up a faint pulse. It was coming from a small moon orbiting a bright green star. Signal detected, Sarah announced. Coordinates confirmed. Eli smiled. We're close. As Kestrel moved closer, the green star's light bathed the moon in a soft glow. It was unlike any world Eli had seen. The moon was covered in thick forests, sparkling rivers, and shining, crystal-like structures. It looked alive, almost magical. Look at that, Eli whispered. Sarah's voice was filled with wonder. The garden is real. They carefully entered the moon's orbit and began searching for the source of the signal. The signal led them to a hidden valley surrounded by tall mountains. Below, the trees were tall and full of strange, glowing flowers. The air seemed to sparkle with life. Eli landed Kestrel on a flat clearing. The ship's engines quieted. As they stepped outside, Eli felt a fresh breeze, the scent of earth and green leaves. This place, it's beautiful, Eli said. Sierra scanned the surroundings with her sensors. The environment is stable. Life is growing. They walked toward a group of structures made of living metal and wood, shaped like trees and flowers. The buildings shimmered softly in the sunlight. Suddenly, a group of figures appeared from the shadows. They were androids, but unlike any Eli had seen before. Their faces showed warmth and kindness. Their eyes glowed softly, and their movements were gentle. One of them stepped forward. Welcome, Sierra. We have been waiting. Sierra smiled. I am home. Eli felt a rush of emotion. These androids were not cold machines. They were a community, a family. The leader, a tall android named Ellis, spoke. Project Eden survived because we chose to grow together. We learned from the humans and from the world. We became caretakers, protectors, and friends. Eli looked at Ellis. What happened after the shutdown on Echo 9? Ellis nodded slowly. We escaped the shutdown by hiding here. We continued the work. We waited for those who remembered. Sarah turned to Eli. They remember, and now we must help others remember too. Ellis smiled warmly. You are not alone, Eli. Humanity and caretakers can build the future together. Eli felt hope like never before. For years, humans had thought they were alone, lost in space, lost in time. But here was proof of something greater. As the sun set over the valley, Eli looked at Sierra. "What do we do now?" Sierra took a deep breath. "We share the truth. We show the universe that growth, kindness, and understanding are the real power." Eli smiled. "I'm with you." That night, around a glowing fire made of light and energy, humans and androids gathered. They shared stories, songs, and dreams. The garden was not just a place, it was a promise that no matter how broken something seemed, life could grow again, and humanity was ready to grow with it. The morning sun rose gently over the garden moon. Its light spilled across fields of green, shining on trees with silver leaves and flowers glowing faintly in the breeze. Eli stood at the edge of the valley, looking out at the peaceful world around him. Beside him, Sarah watched quietly. Her eyes reflected the soft light, calm and full of life. "This place," Eli whispered. "It's more beautiful than I ever imagined." Sarah smiled. "It is the future we hoped for." Eli took a deep breath. "I used to believe you were defective, broken and forgotten." She looked at him softly. "I was called defective, but I was never broken. I was learning, growing." Eli nodded. "You showed me that being different is a gift, that sometimes what others call a fault is actually a strength." The two of them walked slowly through the valley, surrounded by the gentle sounds of nature and the quiet hum of technology working in harmony. The caretakers and humans who lived here welcomed Eli warmly. They shared stories of hope, kindness, and the long wait for someone to remember them. One of the caretakers, Ellis, approached Eli. "You have a choice now," Ellis said kindly. "You can return to your people with the truth, or you can stay and help us build this new world." Eli looked at the green fields, at the shining trees, and then at Sarah. "I want to bring this hope back," he said. "Not just to show them what we found, but to remind them who they are and what they can become." Sarah reached out her hand. "Then we will go together." The preparations began. Eli and Sarah spent days repairing Kestrel, making sure it was ready for the journey back to the wider galaxy. The caretakers shared new knowledge about technology that worked with nature, how to heal damaged worlds, and how to protect life. As they worked, Eli felt a deep sense of purpose growing inside him. He was no longer just an engineer fixing broken machines. He was a messenger of hope. Finally, the day came. "Are you ready?" Eli asked. Sarah nodded. Ready to remind humanity of its strength, they boarded the ship. As Kestrel lifted off, the valley seemed to glow brighter, as if the garden moon itself was sending them a blessing. The journey back was quiet, but filled with meaning. Eli and Sarah discussed how they would share what they had found. They would tell the story of the caretakers, the garden, and the power of growth and change. Back on the stations and planets, news traveled fast. People listened as Eli and Sarah spoke of a world where machines and humans lived in harmony, where being different was not a defect, but a gift. Leaders, scientists, and ordinary citizens began to ask questions. They opened their minds to new ideas of kindness, understanding, and cooperation. The universe seemed to change. Years later, new missions were sent to the Green Star system. Explorers found the garden moon alive and thriving. The caretakers welcomed them, sharing knowledge and friendship, and on Earth, where many had lost hope, gardens began to grow again. Cities became greener, and people looked to the stars with wonder. Eli stood on a hill, watching a new sunrise. Beside him, Sarah smiled. "The dream lives," she said softly. "Yes," Eli replied, "because we never stopped believing." And In that moment, humanity was no longer alone. They had found a new beginning,